Thank you for joining and watching this video today. This is Cyber Church of Christ, and what we use is King James Version always, and we use the Bible to answer Bible questions. We like to prove all things as the commandment is and not have opinions. Today's topic's a little different than some we've been discussing. It's called the poor, which on the surface seems pretty simple. But we're going to look at, there's really two kinds of poor. There's carnally poor and spiritually poor. Now, you can be both, carnally poor with worldly goods and all, and be spiritually poor. And you could be one or the other, which is not as common as being both. And then you could be neither, and that's real rare, as the Bible will mention. Easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. All right, we're going to look today. Let's look at the poor. Now, the very first thing I mention here is that the poor appears 650 times in the Bible in 170 verses. So if you were just to go in and do a word search, like in Blue Letter Bible, blueletterbible.org, and you go in there and say, hey, give me a list of the poor. And then you can see it'll list 650 times ahead, 170 verses. But guess what? Today's sermon doesn't have that many verses that says the word poor in it. So you still wouldn't have them all. There may be something called destitute, something called poverty. And then there's one word called penury. It only happens once in the Bible. Jesus mentioned the widow that gave in all of her possession, which was 2 mites, and says of her penury she gave. So you didn't look up those. Those don't even count in the 650. So the point I'm making is you can study a topic on a particular word, but there may be also other words doing that topic. One, we have references to our verses. Let's get started today. We're going to look at Mark 14:7 with Jesus talking. He's talking to his group of apostles there, and teaching, which is what his profession is teaching. So he's now speaking to them, to us in the scriptures, and speaking to them directly. Let's read that and then discuss. It has a colon in the middle. For ye have the poor with you always, and whensoever ye will, ye may do them good. But me ye have not always. Now, why would you not have him always? Well, we know that he's going to be sacrificed, tortured, persecuted, killed, and then his spirit will return to our Father. So that we know. Of course, at the time he's speaking to them, they don't know all the details. Now, what do you mean we'll have, for ye have the poor with you always? Okay, so I'll go outside in my gated community. I look down the street. I don't see anybody poor. There's pickups and boats and stuff. Okay, so well, you're using this word with you like it's right there next to you. Okay, well, what if it's with you like on planet Earth or in your town? No, you're going to leave your gate. We had an example with Lazarus and the rich man in Luke. And the rich man lived a gated community, the poor man outside the gate. And then we find out what happened with that. All right. And that's not in today's lesson. I'm just telling you it's in there. So I find out something right off the bat. We're always going to have the poor. All right. So eliminating the poor sounds impossible, but that doesn't mean I don't have commandments concerning the poor. So let me look. That's why I'm just going to start off with this. Now, whensoever, what do you mean when? Whensoever ye will, you do them good. So you do see a situation where someone's poor, but you do want to do them good, okay, whenever that happens. So sounds like a commandment to me. Now, but me you have not always that means Jesus is not going to be there in person. What we do have is we have the written word always with us. That's what we have with the Bible. Let's look at one verse here in Psalm in the Old Testament. Look at Psalm 41:1. It starts off with, and most of these chapters do, who's in Psalm, who it addressed to. The chief musician, a Psalm of David. Okay, blessed is he that considereth the poor. the Lord will deliver him in time of trouble. Well, that's, I'm going to look at my pronouns there. So blessed is he that considereth the poor. So the he is the person that has stumbled upon, looked upon, encountered someone that's poor. And now he considers what? Considers that he could be poor or that the other person may not be poor because of some circumstance. So there's the considering means I'm going to be thinking about it, right? Now, the Lord here, which in the Old Testament, all caps, in case you don't know, is our Father, before he gives that title to the Son. So the Lord will deliver him. Who is the him in time of trouble? Well, him is he that considereth the poor. So are you going to consider the poor when you encounter them? If so, since you considered the poor, then the Father says, okay, well, in time of your trouble, you'll be delivered. Okay, so you're going to tie someone being poor to my future trouble. Well, that's just how it looks. That's how it reads. And yes, that's what it means. And why are you rejecting the poor? So that's going to lead us to our next topic. You'll notice here I have a warning. It says ignoring the poor is not God's love. That's not something that we want. All right, so we're going to go to 3 verses in James. James 2:14 through 16, the word poor does not appear. Okay, so what we do have, though, is a word called destitute. All right, and that's also poor. All right, let's look at verse 14. What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he hath faith and have not works? Can faith save him? Well, we found out in the hereafter when we say, what have you done? And we're looking at things, tasks that we've done, and they're called works, spiritual works, that we show our faith by the works that we do. To just have faith means you just believe in the Father and you don't plan on doing anything. So that's why you read this chapter 2 of James, and you'll see that what good is that? What good is it to believe the Father and have faith in the Father and then not do anything that pleases the Father? Because there's a thing called works. Works is something man always struggles to avoid. Well, a famous inventor mentioned once that it took a lot more work to avoid work. So he was trying to find a shortcut to something. Well, in inventor talk, of course. All right, now, that was verse 14. Now let's look at verse 15, James 2. All right. If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, so there's where we have a comma, and this naked could be what? Well, depending on the environment, it would mean that they're not protected enough. In other words, what if they're cold, don't have a coat? Something like that. And so, yes, this naked is they do not have the protection that they should have. Destitute of daily food, there's a comma. Now, let's look at verse 16. And one of you say unto them, I've got say underlined, because we're going to discuss this verse 16 in detail now. And one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be ye warmed and filled. Notwithstanding, you give them not those things which are needful to the body. What doth it profit? Now, where you're looking at profit, you mean spiritually profit? Yeah, it's exactly what we're talking about, spiritually profit. How does that gain anything? How does that do something that pleases the Father, which is what profit is in the spiritual world? All right, so what I found out is someone's destitute of daily food. Okay, so what now that I've encountered them, and let's just say, for an example, they're at my door, they need bread. Do I have bread? Oh yeah, I got a half loaf in the pantry and then a loaf in the freezer. Okay, so, and what now? Do you have, it's want to be warm? Do you have a coat? I got 3 or 4 coats. I got a hoodie and some sweaters and coats. All right. And food? Yeah, I got food, fridge and in the pantry. All right. So what the guy's actually asking for, you actually have. Well, yeah. actually have it. But here's the deal. He's actually wanting me to give something. And what I am going to give is words. So you see the word say on there that I got underlined? Now that's what happens in our society today. And I notice this often on when I'm seeing the news or seeing TV. And that is what? Well, what will happen is a person or a group of people will have a need come about. All right. And then when this need comes about, there are things that they need. And when it's time to now give these things that they need, the person says, oh, I'm going to give you thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Yeah. But you got bread and pantry and food and coat. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm just going to give them some advice. First of all, depart. Well, that gets rid of this me encountering a poor to begin with. So let's start with depart. Now, depart in peace, I mean no harm. Hope you have a good day. But so depart in peace. And now you said you were a little chilly. Be ye warmed and filled. You told me that you were naked and destitute of food. Okay, so I'm going to give you a proclamation. Be ye warmed and filled. So that's it. You offered words? Yes. So here's we're getting a warning here in James. Hey, when someone needs something, you give them the thing they need. Words, what good does that do? Give you words. Okay, this person needs right now a coat. I give them a coat. Father sees and give them a coat. Okay, so you did what? Considered the poor. We already had that up there. And then did you do them good? Yeah, those were the first two verses in the sermon. So did them good, right? So what does it profit if you're not giving what they need? What's needful to the body? What is needful to the body? Words? No, never. Body doesn't do nothing with words. The only thing you can do with words is put them in the brain and have the spirit mess around with them. So that's what happens with words is I'm listening to you and I hear words. That has nothing to do with being nourished in the body. So yes, so let's keep that as a warning as individuals and as the church, that what we do is let's not try to just proclaim, I'm going to show you my faith through my works. Well, let me show you my faith. Let me just give you thoughts and prayers. No, why don't you show me my works and give them the bread and the coat that they need? Now you proved your faith. So that's what this is about. So yeah, even though the topic today, poor, is simple, there's a lot of meaty little detail here that's in today's sermon. Now, let's move on to 1 John chapter 3. 1 John 3:17, we're on the same topic of ignoring the poor, all right? Because it's much easier to ignore the poor. Depart in peace. Then they don't have to do any commandments. See? All right, 1 John 3:17. But whoso hath this world's good, and seeth his brother have need, and shutteth up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwelleth the love of God in him? Okay, we got some pronouns there. So, who hath this world's good? Okay, well, actually, I would actually qualify for that. Because, I have actually nothing that I need of all and don't really have meals to skip unless I do it on purpose. And have more than I thought I'd ever have. So, yeah, I have the world's good. So you talking to me? Yeah. What happens after the comma? You see it, this brother have need. Oh. So I see a guy in the world. Well, have need. How you put that in bold? Well, yeah, that's the poor. Well, he's only poor for a short amount of time. So he just has need just for today. What if I only need the bread today and only need the coat today? So what if it's temporary? They have need. So yes, the Father's now saying, hey, by the way, did I give you stuff? Do you have the world's good? Yeah. Okay, did you find somebody that has need? Yep. All right. So you got two choices. You can either have compassion or not have compassion. It's an on and off switch. So I saw the person was in need, and then I self-examined and saw, I have the world's good, and then they have need, and now, wait a minute, they have need and I have a commandment? Yeah, yeah. They're actually asking for something, has actually mercy in it. And they're asking they have something need, and now the Father's going, okay, compassion is the commandment. He wants to see is compassion going to come out or not. Say, well, I feel sorry for the guy, so I said, depart in peace and be ye warned. I gave him some nice thoughts his way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the Father's calling that you shut up the bowels of compassion. You open the bowels of verbiage. Yeah, you can talk. Yeah, you know what's free? My words are free. Yeah. No, just depart. Depart, be ye warmed and filled. Hope you have a good day. Well, that says the love of God is not in you. Oh, that's what you're going. That's where you're going with this. Well, yeah, there's a commandment tied to it. Hey, Brother Mike, what happens is you encountered this poor, and then now what do? Oh, well, I'm going to make a decision whether they should be poor or not. I said, well, the guy got into his own deal. He made himself poor. Okay, where's that verse? Oh, well, there's no verse for right. You start reasoning on how you can get out of the commandment. That's what man does. See what happens? You gave me the commandment, but guess what? I'm going to reason my way out of it. Oh, the woman that you gave me, then she made me eat the fruit. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. You see, you're going to try to get out of the commandment. Yeah, so anyway, he just gave you a commandment. So poor, and I'm expecting compassion. And then what things am I going to give them? Whatever is needful. So evidently you know what they need because the word needful is in there. So they said have need showed up in both of these spots, by the way. So what is poor? Poor, somebody in need. All right. Now let's move on. That's right there. What we're talking about now is carnally is on planet Earth. And people on planet Earth, and you have compassion on them, and that's good. And yes, all the other, whether they deserve it or not, that's a whole nother topic. All right, let's look in the middle of the sermon here. We have a warning to the church members of the church of Laodicea. They decided what's rich and poor. So here's what's happened. In case you don't have a lot of Bible knowledge, but in Revelation, there's red letter because Jesus is actually the high priest. He's speaking as the high priest, and he'll speak to us and the angel assigned to a church. Anyway, there's 7 congregations. There's 7 churches. They each have a name. And then he gives a report, and we find out 2 have a good report, 5 have a bad report. All right. Well, this is in the middle of that. He's giving a report. So this report in Revelation 3:17, if you want to see that, this is a report to the church of Laodicea. Okay. And what happens at Laodicea is they've been tremendously blessed with earthly goods, with the world's good. Okay. And so now they are now making a proclamation on what is rich and what is poor. So let's look at that. So here's what you're going to do. I'm going to decide what's rich and poor. And the Bible's saying, no, the Bible says what's rich and poor, and you use that definition. We're not using Brother Mike's opinion of what's rich and poor. You just look in the Bible. All right. So let's look at Revelation 3:17. Excuse me a second here. And this is Jesus talking. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increased with goods, and have need of nothing. And then there's a semicolon, because here's what Christ has done here, the high priest. He's taking your quote. My quote is, I'm rich, I'm increasing good, I don't need anything. Now he's saying, let me take your quote and go ahead and respond. So that's where the and that comes in there after the semicolon. And knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable and poor and blind and naked. And go, wait a minute. Now, how can I have the exact opposite report that the high priest has? Because I'm looking at the church here in Laodicea, and I'm saying, hey, we got tremendously blessed. Look at all the goods we have. We're increased with good. We have goods on top of good. All right, it's called profit. All right, and what? We don't need anything. Okay, so that was your report. Right, now the high priest, who's actually in charge of the churches, comes back and says, no, you're miserable. But I have increased with goods. Not arguing with that. I already know you got increased goods. And you said you have need of nothing. You must be talking carnal, because I'm going to give you your spiritual report. First of all, you're wretched and you're miserable and poor. How can you be poor? Because you're supposed to be rich in the word. I'm trying to send people there to get converted and to become Christians and to do the Father's will. And they can't even go to Laodicea for that. All they see there is a bunch of worldly riches. They don't see any truth being taught. Well, that's what we find today in our society. You want to go to a place that's rich, looks rich, people are rich, but spiritually they're poor, blind, don't even see the truth, right? Naked, right? They haven't put on the whole armor of God. They haven't clothed themselves with charity, right? So the high priest is going, hey, that's called naked. So there would be spiritual. All these are your spiritual report. Wretched, miserable, poor, blind, naked. And you gave me your report saying that you have increased with goods and have need of nothing. So that's why we have, as a church and as individual members of the church, we look at the definitions that are in the Bible. So I'm going to say, what is poor? Let's look at the Bible and say, what is poor? Do you mean spiritually poor? Because that's what it refers to plenty of times as spiritually poor. Much easier for me to give the guy a loaf of bread and then it's done. What about if he's spiritually poor? I need to constantly feed. So that's why you would have things about dropping seeds and being spiritually nourished and give the watering and increase, that type of thing. All that goes together. All right, let's stay in Revelation. Let's look at this next little section here. The church can be worldly poor and heavenly rich, like the church that met in Smyrna. So when Jesus is now given the report, the high priest giving the report, church in Smyrna, he's not even, we're not even hearing them talk about themselves. He's giving the report directly to them. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty. Now, let me put that in parentheses. Thou art rich. Okay, but you just said that you know about my works and all the trouble we have, and tribulation and poverty, like we're not like a rich church, rich congregation thing. Right, but I'm calling you rich. You go, man, that's a place I can send people to learn truth. What a rich place that is. Okay, well, the other place that said they were rich, you said they were poor or miserable. Yeah. And now I'm not even calling you poor or miserable. I'm now saying, hey, buddy, you're rich. I can send people your way, and they probably have a Bible question. You can show them the Bible answer. Can't get richer than that. All right. Now, I'm still in the middle of the verse here. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Now, what does that refer to? It refers to false doctrine. So he says, yes, I know those that there's blasphemy out there. There's those that claim they're Christians or claim they're in the kingdom doing, and they're not. They're actually blasphemous. Okay. But as far as your church in Smyrna, I know your works and you're rich. So I'm finding out, so you're going to use as the currency for rich and poor, I'm using dollars. So you're telling me in spiritual world, you're using works? Yeah, using work. How much is in my account? How much work have you done? So you mean when I look at the sermon called "Accounted Worthy" or topic "Counted Worthy" and the Judgment Day and all that, that's when that comes in. Yeah, works is what's going to come in. So is that what you're wanting to be rich? It's called work, spiritual works. I know, but I end up. I mean, I run into tribulation. I already said you run into tribulation. I already got it documented. You got works, and there's going to be tribulation. And then we don't look rich, like I'm rich building or none of that. We don't have any gold or any of that. Correct. What is that? That's all carnal. That's not a spirit. Works is what we're measuring here. And so works is going poor or rich. Well, when I went up that verse 317 you just read earlier, or you didn't, where are their works? I looked for the word works back in there. Increase with goods, needing nothing. Oh, you didn't even mention any works. Well, no, they didn't have any. So fact that I've used the word poor means that they didn't have any works. So I go, hey, what's in this account? Nothing. They don't have any work. Nothing. That's no work, nothing. Actually, so you're calling them poor? Yeah, they're poor. What about this church here, that Smyrna? Oh yeah, rich. Boy, y'all see what they add in their account. Their account's full. I keep adding stuff to their account. Oh yeah, that's a rich place there. Oh, okay, you're going by works. Yeah. Well, they would have to have faith to produce works. Yeah, fancy that. So we're back to you having faith, producing the works, and then becoming rich. Okay. Let's look at the bottom of the sermon here. Let's go on 2 Corinthians 8:9. We have our high priest example, of being worldly poor and spiritually rich. Okay, so you're talking about our high priest, Jesus? Yeah, yeah. So let's read 2 Corinthians 8:9. For ye know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor, that ye through his poverty might be rich. Well, you're going to have to explain that. Rich, poor, poor, poverty, rich. What are you talking about? Okay, well, let's investigate here. 2 Corinthians 8:9. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich. When was he rich? He walked around planet Earth, didn't have a house, just had the clothes on his back. The goods and stuff that they bought in the money bag, Judas held the money bag. He didn't have a wallet or anything. Oh, you're talking about spiritually rich. Oh, okay. So like he was with the Father, and then the Father sent him down. Yeah, lower than the angels, and says, "Hey, deal," and then now you're a human being, right? And why would you do that for me? Yeah, saying for your sakes. Are you the one reading it? Yeah. Well, for your sakes, your high priest, he became poor. Okay, at the judgment day, we'll say, well, you weren't poor like me. I always had to beg. No, wrong. Already proved he was poor. You don't know. Remember, we've discussed that before. What did he look like? Well, probably looked like a homeless guy. Right? Whatever poor looks like to you. Anyway, he became poor. And then what? Through his poverty, might be. I am going to be rich through the poverty of the high priest. Yeah, that's what the verse says. Oh, okay. So the fact that you sent him down and then he does the plan and he says, hey, I'm only interested in the plan. I'm not interested in wealth. I'm not interested in anything carnal. No, he was rich. He's now carnally poor, right? Now through that, him being poor and being crucified and sacrificing himself and proving the plan, I can become rich. Yeah, you'd become spiritually real. Are you going to produce works? Or in the communion today, did you do bread, fruit of the vine? Yeah. Okay. Well, you were actually remembering his body and and then his blood that he had in him. Well, that body and blood lived in poverty. Spirit, that's where the wealth was. Right. So he's saying, hey, that's what you need to think about. Think about you being spiritually rich. Okay. So I have a little remember sign there that says what? Be poor in lustful pride. Be rich in faith. So, well, you don't have a lot of pride. Oh, that ends up being good. And you have a lot of faith. Well, that ends up being good. Okay, what if I have a lot of pride and no faith? Well, we saw that. We said, hey, it was wretched, miserable, poor, blind, naked. Yeah, that's what that covers. Okay. So I need to be rich in faith, which will produce works. And then if we're doing that as a group, he's then saying, hey, your whole church is rich. Okay, nice. That's what I wanted. All right, let's finish up today. So, 1 Corinthians. We're going chapter 13, verses 3 and 4. Okay. Now, let's just say that we're talking while we're reading this. All right. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, and have not charity, it profiteth me nothing. All right, I'll stop there before I read verse 4. And you said, what now? You gave me a commandment to give to the poor, right? I saw the poor, I had compassion, gave the loaf of bread and one of my coats to the guy. Okay. So I did exactly what the commandment said. Okay. But guess what? You did it grudgingly. You just wanted to obey the commandment. You know what I looked for in your heart when I looked for that compassion? I looked for charity. Yeah. It didn't look charitable. It looked like you were frustrated to go getting that coat out of there. You gave me your worst coat. I noticed that. You got a coat out of there and then your loaf of bread. And you go, well, here you go. I'm following the commandment. Yeah. Well, the Father doesn't even like that. Well, even though you obeyed the commandment, it says right here, even though I bestowed all my goods to the poor. Yeah, but I don't like your attitude. You're supposed to have a charitable attitude, a charity and compassion. You ever notice how, can you have charity without compassion? No, I didn't think so. Yeah. So compassion is going to drive charity. So that's why I have these verses in here. All right. Because why? Well, can faith save you? No, the works saved me that I did with my faith. What happened with this thing called the poor? The poor, I said compassion and charity. Okay. Well, we're just going to add to your works then. That's just more work. Very good. So I profit nothing if I gave to the poor. Well, I put a caveat in there that you have not charity. And what is this? I give my body to be burned. It means I have to be cremated thing. Well, no, that means you offered your time, energy, all that to whatever it is. And to body to be burned is I'm sacrificing my human body here on planet Earth. That's not my number one concern. My number one concern is feeding the poor or charity, that type of deal. So this is actually spiritual. Okay. So when he says, give my body to be burned, don't take that like, hey, I have to be cremated. I've heard that. All right, now he became poor through his poverty. Now, what about us? We gave to the poor. He does not give us a commandment saying you have to be poor. Huh. When I looked, some of the richest guys there was Abraham. Now, the richest man that ever lived or ever will live, the richest carnally, would be Adam. And so he owned the whole planet. So ain't nobody else make that claim. So even when the 8 dudes got off the ark, they still had split it 8 ways, didn't they? All right. So there you go. Just because you gain the whole world, lose your soul, profits you nothing, right? All right. So it's charity. So let's keep that in mind. compassion, charity, compassion, charity. So what happens is, well, I've encountered the poor, and now the Father's looking for compassion with charity. All right. Verse 4, we're looking at the last verse of the sermon today. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Charity suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, and it's not puffed up. So guess what does that mean? Well, don't brag because you gave the guy the bread and the coat. Didn't the Father give you the bread to begin with? And the coat and the house you're living in? Yeah. You encountered the poor. I better not hear this depart in peace. I better see something called compassion and charity. Because guess what? That doesn't puff itself up. You gave me compassion and forget it. And guess what? Next time I go to the store, just buy another loaf of bread. I don't have to worry about the other deal. I'm not trying to get quick. Well, that's where there's no envy. And envy is not, I don't vaunt myself up. Hey, guess what I did? I'm about to call the brethren of the congregation. Man, I just gave a large chunk of money to a guy who needed money. Okay, what does that profit? Well, they're going to say, that's a good job, Mike. Now what? That ain't spiritual. No, you give with compassion. All right. Now, anyway, that's today's lesson. Hope you learned something today, that it's on the poor, but it may not be like exactly what you're thinking. I wanted to drive the point home that, yes, they're spiritually poor, what to do about it. And then the fact that works and faith and charity are all tied together, and it's all part of your test. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, and you also check out more of our videos that we're the Cyber Church of Christ. Look us up. Hope you have a great day, and take the words spoken today and implement them into your life. Have a great day.